Good evening. I hope you had a good day. It is now 9 o'clock and it's time for Hope and Action Network's Friend of a Wounded Heart program. Remember, we are on every Wednesday evening at 9 o'clock. We are on and we do appreciate the persons who join us from time to time. Some could make it every week, some cannot. Whenever you're here, we're happy. Thank you for supporting Hope and Action Network. Before we begin, let's say a word of prayer, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for sparing our lives. Thank you for helping us to this hour, 9 o'clock hour, when we come again to discuss issues related to our society. We pray that you guide this evening's program just as you've guided all that went before. Keep the connectivity going and may people come on and discuss and may we truly be blessed and inspired and may change, real change come as a result of what we do here. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Yes, we are here and a warm welcome to you. Welcome to you. Open Action Network's Friend of a Wounded Heart program brought to you every Wednesday evening at 9 o'clock. It is a pleasure to have you. This evening is going to be just as beautiful, just as informative as the programs we've had before. And why do we come here? We're here because Hope and Action Network, a non-governmental organization, not-for-profit organization, decided that it wants to see some change in society. And this is one of our initiatives, Friend of a Wounded Heart. We want to see a better society that is built on strong foundations through the empowerment of everyone. And that's our vision that I just gave to you. Open Action Network's vision, a better society built on strong foundations through the empowerment of everyone. And as I said, this is a non-governmental organization. There is no profit in what we do. Nobody's paid for anything. We give because we love God and we love society. And our program is named Friend of a Wounded Heart, Jesus, that one who loves us all and gave himself for us. So we discuss a variety of topics, all kinds of issues. And we have been here 176 times before, or 177 times before, because this is session 178. I really can't, when we do the count, it is always, a jolt when we look at the number, because we've been here for quite a long time. And by God's grace, we will continue. I encourage you to share the invitation with others. Yeah, we have some regulars, but we need to have more people logging on and discussing our issues and sharing what we discuss with other people. I know there's some people who would take it into the schools and the churches and young people groups and whatever. However, we need more people to hear it firsthand and even engage in the discussion. We're grateful for those who are with us on the journey. Well, what have we done for the last 5 sessions? Well, on the 18th of March, we had a guest who dealt with drug addiction. Drug addiction is a disease. And our advice to people is just don't start. Just do not begin. Because once you become diseased, it will be difficult to stop. On the 25th of March, we said women. And this was a call to women to behave better. Women were stealing up and down the place and embarrassing themselves. They pasted all over social media for the wrong reasons. And of course, their faces will just keep going and going and going throughout the world because this is a wide open world connected by technology, connected by the internet. On April 1st, traditionally known as All Fools Day, we dealt with fooling people and avoiding falling into traps. So our topic was, I'm nobody's fool. I'm nobody's fool. Then we dealt with tag teams from hell, and there's where people were collaborating to do evil, collaborating to do wicked things, luring the granny who just withdrew her little money from the bank, promising to drop her home. Two ladies. And then two men intercepted and hit the lady and robbed her. And we're saying, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Last week we said, drink your own tea. And then we dealt with drinking bush tea for other people's fever. We said, no, no, no. Don't pick up somebody's problem and get upset with a person for no reason. Just because your friend is upset or your relative is upset with that person. We have to be able to think for ourselves. We have to be able to reason for ourselves and make decisions for ourselves. This week, don't film them. And I got this topic from an incident that happened in Australia. As a matter of fact, I met someone recently. I messaged her on the internet. Her name, Lena Tupa, or Tupua, and her non-governmental organization is called Hands, Hearts, Hope. When I saw what she was saying on Facebook, I said, look, I need to reach out to this person. I need to hear how she does what she does. And so, right within the chat, we made a comment, I wish I could speak with you. And she said, you have my permission to send me a personal message, a private message. And I did. This lady has a heart for people. Her organization is able to feed homeless people every night. Every night they go to a certain spot and they provide meals. So I asked her, how are you able to do it? And she said to me that fortunately, they're very generous people around. So they get help from people. From restaurants, they get end of day meat. From supermarkets, end of day meat. So, sometimes they cut their pieces of meat and you have ends and pieces that they cannot use. And so she takes them. Sometimes she gets pre-packaged meals from organizations and they will repurpose them for the homeless. They went to supermarkets, they go to supermarkets and they get close to used by this date products. What is that? What am I talking about here? There is always a use by a certain date with non an item or an expiry date as we tend to call them. So they go, and if anything is close to that date, they get it. And of course, there's a life beyond that date. Months beyond that date, the item could be used. So they get these items, and so they're able to provide meals for these homeless people. We were to have a meeting last night, but she messaged and asked that we postpone it because of an urgent matter that came up, and she had to be quite busy. So I will meet with her to hear more about what she does. But what happened last week really triggered or influenced the topic for this week. There was a man who was homeless and he had a medical issue, and someone went with the phone, the camera, to record, and she stood in front of the camera and she said, do not film them. Do not film them. Of course, she had to say quite firmly. The man was very upset and he accused her of boxing the camera out of his hand and so on. However, she eventually put a message out on Facebook, a post out on Facebook, indicating that she didn't do that. She indicated that she was aware of this video from their outreach that was circulating online. So she says they were attending to a man who was unresponsive on the street. The person was in distress. They called an ambulance and they were focusing on getting him to safety and ensuring that he was well. And while they were dealing with that, an individual, and she named the person, began filming without consent. And she stands up for these people. She stands up for people experiencing homelessness. So she doesn't even call them homeless people, and we'll get to that in a while. She says that I stand up for people experiencing homelessness, their dignity, their safety, and their right to be treated with respect. And I will step in every single time when I see that being compromised. And she went on to explain certain things that happened. The flyer I sent out said, respecting the dignity of people experiencing homelessness involves treating them with humanity, with empathy, and autonomy, recognizing their worth something, recognizing their worth beyond their housing status. So, in other words, they are of value despite where they're living. Key actions include listening and providing clean, respectful care, avoiding stigma, supporting self-led long-term, housing solutions rather than condescending assistance. And the flyer itself actually asks, are you videotaping people who are experiencing homelessness without consent for social media likes? This is unethical and exploitative. Do not give us the advocacy argument if you do not prioritize their consent, if you do not avoid humiliation, if you do not focus on dignity and responsible storytelling. Are you seeking positive change as opposed to increasing followers for financial gain? Now let's talk about this. We know that many people who post information on social media, they post it to increase their followers, the number of followers. And when you get a certain number, you get financial rewards. So people post anything and everything. Now, Lena was standing up for this gentleman, and I truly admire her. What do you think about people who record every negative thing that is happening to someone? What do you think about that? And posting on social media. What are your thoughts? Now, who is going to unmute?
Good night, Dr. Ward.
Yes.
Well, for me personally, it is a very distasteful thing that when people record without your consent. And not just only the displacement of people, right? Even when there's an accident, you know, when people should be taking care of the person who is in the accident, everybody has a camera up. Somebody is grieving, somebody would have lost a loved one. And the first thing is a camera up. Videotaping everything, videotaping the people crying, the people under distress. And for me, it's so insensitive when you should be there trying to help the person to deal with the situation. You are there thing, and the sad part about it is that after they finish make the video, as you see, they post it. It's like it goes viral, and people should be more sensitive.
Of course.
It's not a nice thing, because I always believe if you are placed in that situation, you would not like people to do that to you. So as the Guru said, do unto others as you would like them to do unto you.
Right. Thank you for that, Sherilyn. Does anybody else want to comment at this point? We never know when the situation will change for us. Okay, so there are some principles for respectful engagement with people who are experiencing homelessness. And notice that we are not calling them the homeless, and we're going to talk about that. People who are experiencing homelessness. One of the things that we need to do is to acknowledge them and validate them. They have value. Acknowledge by smiling with them, by making eye contact with them. And sometimes you find people on the streets who have issues with mental health issues, and so you have to be extremely cautious. But there are some people who are living on the streets who are fine. They do not have mental issues. They are victims of circumstances. Quite recently in Barbados, a gentleman who was experiencing homelessness died. And he was given a hero's funeral, because apparently he was a very humorous person. He would attend functions. Apparently, he got clothes from his relatives abroad, so he dressed well at times. And his body was actually lying in state at Queen's Park. People filed past his body, and then the relatives abroad came down, and he had a very beautiful funeral, if I could say that. Yes, and he lived on the streets. People experience homelessness for different reasons. So we can smile with them. We can make eye contact. We can speak with them. They are individuals, they are people. So we must treat them as people, as individuals. Some of us, would refuse to say good morning or good evening to someone who is experiencing homelessness, but they are people too. And so we must acknowledge them, and we must validate them. Let them feel as though we are recognizing and knowing that they are people. Another thing that we should do is to empower them as much as we could. So we should involve them in making decisions about their lives and about the support services. So if we see a person who is experiencing homelessness in the streets and we feel like giving that person a meal, we can offer them a choice. Instead of going and purchasing the meal and say, look, I bought this for you. Sometimes you can ask them what they like to have. But of course, we know the ones who are abusing drugs want the money. But there are some people who are living on the streets who will accept lunch from you, a meal from you, but we can offer them a choice. Ask them, what would you like to eat today? Or how can I help you? What do you want me to do for you? So we empower them by helping them to make decisions about themselves. We also should avoid stigma. You see, we live in a society, in a world that labels people, label them. So he lives on the street, so we label him and call him all kinds of disrespectful names. We treat them without compassion. Some people who live on the streets endure abuse, serious abuse. Some people beat them. If they find a little box that they're going to sleep on tonight, some people may just take away the box and tear it up and take away their belongings. Really treat them badly, and we should really be treating them with compassion and not with not judgment. We should not be judgmental. And we should not be indifferent. I'm saying we should not be judgmental. And let me tell you something. Sometimes we say that they are in that condition because they brought it upon themselves. But sometimes they didn't bring it upon themselves, and we talk about that a little later on. Sometimes, yeah. I was at my daughter's home in LA, well, North Hollywood, and I got up very early one morning and decided to walk to the supermarket. So I walked to the supermarket. On my way, I saw something on the pavement, but it was covered with a blanket. So I was saying, but why did this person cover the garbage with a blanket? I could not understand that. Listen, when I got closer, the blanket moved. It was a human being who was sleeping on the pavement and was covered with a blanket. I went to the supermarket, took an Uber to get back home. And when I was getting back home, that person was up and awake and doing his work. He was cleaning the streets, but he had nowhere to live. So sometimes we say, well, they're lazy, they don't want to work, and we make all kinds of, you know, we jump to all kinds of conclusions about these people. He had nowhere to live. And in LA, I saw the worst kinds of homelessness that I have ever seen. Right there, alongside the rich and famous, there was so much homelessness. There was so much homelessness. So we can't jump to conclusions. We have to treat people with compassion. We should not label them. We should not treat them with indifference. And of course, we should never judge. And the Bible says, judge not, lest ye be judged. Same thing we used to measure, that could be used to measure us. We should not judge. There are people living on the streets who did not cause their problems, did not create their problems. So, yes, there are some principles that we can adopt to show respect for these people and to help them in terms of how they feel about themselves, their self-esteem. If they already are living it rough, as my friend from Australia says, they're living it rough, and we're not to add to their problems. So they're going to be feeling, they will feel as though they're inferior, but we're not to treat them that way. In other words, we mustn't add more weight to what they are already experiencing. We have to treat them with dignity and respect. So respectful engagement is what we are saying should happen. They're on the street, and we never know when something will happen to us to cause us to have to spend a night on the street or spend a night in the car. And remember, you could stop me at any time and add your bit to what I'm saying. So there's some actions that we could engage in that will help them to maintain their dignity. Some practical actions. We must provide dignified service. Dignified service. So the fact that they're living on the street should not lower the level of service that we offer to people. In other words, we shouldn't layer it. So if we're helping a lady who lives in a big house next door to us, if we're helping her in a dignified manner, we should help the person on the street in a dignified manner as well. If they're on the street, they would need clean, private, and safe facilities. And one person may not be able to provide that, but certainly there are people who can do that for them. The safety is an issue. I'm always worried about people who live on the streets. They're not safe, and people are cruel out there. And so we should do whatever we can to help them. And then sometimes they want to talk to us, and we should listen. And we should listen without making judgments. Offer a listening ear. Sometimes they want to talk, they want to share their stories, and we should listen without making judgments. When we listen to their stories, it could help us to understand what they need. It could help us to understand what we can do for them. Sometimes in being able to tell their stories, it sets them thinking in a different way because they listen to themselves telling their stories to someone who wants to hear it and someone who can understand. And that could begin their therapy, talking about how they got into this situation. And then we can ask what they need. And as I mentioned with the providing lunch for them earlier, we can give them choices. Sometimes we decide that they need this and they need that. But when we talk with them, we are respecting their dignity. And so we can let them decide, tell us what they need. If they tell you they need rum and cigarettes, certainly you wouldn't give that to them. But sometimes they're going to tell you about things that they need that we, who are not experiencing homelessness, also need. Same kinds of needs. We are all human beings. We are all human beings, and we have to remember that we all have the same basic biological needs, and we all have safety needs, and we all have esteem needs. They have needs as well, but they are experiencing homelessness, and sometimes they're unable to satisfy those needs as a result of what they're experiencing. So we can ask what they need rather than assuming that this is what we should give to them. Ask them what assistance they need. How can I help you? What can I do for you? And of course, I repeat that we're not going to give them rum and cigarette and drugs and so on. And we certainly can let them know, I can't do that. I will not do that for you. But I can give you something that I know you will benefit from. And we all have an opportunity to support policy change by advocating for those who are experiencing homelessness. So we can advocate for housing. And of course, in the case of those people I spoke of in LA, it was low wages and high costs of living that caused them to be on the street. We can advocate for health care for those who are living on the street. We can do something. We can do something. They're human beings there. But for the grace of God, some of us might have been out there. Some of us might have been out there. All right. So nobody want to jump in here and say something? What do you think about these people living on the street and how they are treated? We heard from Cherilyn. She's saying it's wrong for us to just go with a camera and start videotaping. These are human beings. They're human beings. And it's really wrong to just place their stories on social media for likes and increase their following and make money off of their circumstances. It is immoral. If we are recording what is happening with them, we should seek their permission. May I take a picture? May I do a video? Yes, but sometimes we treat them like like a thing, as though they have no voice. But they are human beings, and they should be treated as human beings. Treat them with dignity. When we interact with them, it should be interaction with dignity. And I spoke earlier on about eye contact. We're talking with them. Just as you would speak with a friend, you look at them, you make the eye contact, smile, If you do not have the time to stand on the street to speak with them, good morning, good morning. They're not invisible. They're people and they're there. And we should acknowledge their presence. And when we're speaking with them, let us remember that everybody has a name. Everybody has a name. And we should call them by their names. Many of the people who are experiencing homelessness have nicknames, but if we know their real names, we should use those. There are some people who do not mind the nicknames, but we should make every effort to find out their names. And how wonderful it would be if Carlos is on the street and we walk by and say, good morning, Carlos, how are you today? Carlos is going to feel good about himself, knowing that Anne Marie knows his name. And Anne is asking, why ask their permission to do a video and hurt them with the same video pictures? No, we said it's only for advocacy. If we are advocating for them, we are advocating for them. If it's something that we wish to use as evidence that this is happening, then we do it. But what we find is that many people are doing it for likes and followers and to make money. So we're not videotaping to hurt them. But if we are advancing the advocacy argument, we should really be advocating. Walk into the minister's office and say, look at this. Yes, and social media is not really the place to advocate for people in need. That, it's a place where all kinds of judgments are made based on limited information, all kinds of judgments. If we see Tom living on the street, and then we go down the road and we see Jerry down there too, and then we go down and Oscar is there, and we go a little further and Fred is there, then we realize, well, look, this is an issue. And so we can go to the right places to advocate for them. But spreading it on social media is not the answer. It is not the response that is needed. It is not the action that is needed. Advocacy can work, but we have to go to the right places. And so, Lena, she stood in front of the camera, and the gentleman was arguing with her, and she did not care. Because as she said, she will always stand up for the rights of people who are experiencing homelessness. And I want us to really take on that term. Instead of calling people homeless, the homeless man, what he's experiencing should not be used as an adjective, should not be describing him. He's first of all a man who is experiencing homelessness. And that's how we should refer to him. When we listen to their stories as well, we must practice what is called active listening. Show them that we understand what they're saying. So if they tell us, well, look, I was living with my wife and I went home and I met all my things outside, we listen and we clarify. So are you saying that you lived there and then you realize that all your things were at the side of the road, and so you repeat what they say, you are active in the conversation. So they're not really talking to themselves. And they will feel as though you are really interested in what they are saying. And we're not to just take the stories for commerce, but take the stories and try to do something to help them. Let's talk about the camp, or the place where they decide to live.
Miss Bobb-Ward, good night.
Yes, Davicia.
Yeah. I'm hearing this story and I just am remembering of one particular gentleman who I used to see sitting down in front of Tea and Tech in Park Street there
Park Street.
sometimes. And when I pass him sometimes he would call me out and he would call me by the names of older family members. And
Oh,
one time I stop and we chat and when I see him, he also sitting down drinking a cup of tea on the ground, eh? Sitting down drinking a cup of tea and reading the papers.
mhm.
And not looking dirty or anything, but just sitting down comfortable, drinking a cup of tea and reading the papers. And he called me and started asking about all the family members who he would have known because apparently, in his younger days, he would have grown up with my uncle and the older generation because it
Mhm.
seems as though he used to live up in the village where we used to live.
Oh,
So he asking for my mommy and he asking for my uncle and all of these people and chat with me. And at the end of the chat, I can get $5. I would give him.
Mm,
I would give him. But there were times where sometimes I would see him from a distance and I know, I'm not able with the long talk at a particular time, or I
yeah.
just really don't have cash on me to say I want to give the extra. So sometimes I try to kind of like open that he don't see me today, you know. But when he ever I pass, I would stop and talk to him. And
Mhm.
I got into a bit of his story as well. He told me about house and the mother died and the brother fighting him for the house. Apparently still up in the area where I live. And I haven't seen him down in front of Tea and Tech for a while, sitting down. But where I have seen him is in the village where we live here, walking on the
Okay.
road, looking very nice and neat and clean. But every now and again, he will just go down the road and sit back down and drunk
Oh,
and solicit money from persons because apparently he has the house. But like he
okay.
just so accustomed to
Hmm.
the lifestyle that every now and again, probably if he just feels like it or if he just has a need, he'll go down here and just sit down and get his little small change and come back home and change his clothes and look nice walking on the road. But he's a bit of a character, but a nice person still. All the interactions have been good. But it's just the
Okay.
observation of, I wonder if he really has a
If,
need or if he's just doing it as a part-time hobby.
it might be a habit, eh? He was accustomed to
Yes,
doing that when they took the house from
yes,
him. But now he's
yes,
no longer living it rough, but he has some of the old habits with him. All right.
yes.
Yeah. But chat with him and you may be able to find out some more things about him. Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
good.
he even passes by the church that we have, the community church. I invited him a couple of times. He said he's Seventh-day Adventist, and he used to go to church a long time, but he cannot stop now. And every now and again, he'll stop and talk to the pastor because the pastor lives close to the church. So
Okay.
that pretty happy guy.
Yeah, I don't know. You weren't in when I spoke of the gentleman in Barbados who was buried recently. He was living on the streets. And but of course he was clean. He has relatives or had relatives who lived in the States and they would send clothes for him, but he didn't have a home. But he was a pleasant person. People on the streets would often chat with him. And he died about 2 months ago, and his body was lying in state in the park, Queen's Park. Queen's Park, a big park in town. His body was lying there in state, and he had a beautiful funeral following that. So people, he was known as a character on the street, but listen, I saw some videos with him. I understand that he used to have a government job and something went wrong. I'm not sure what it was, but he was a very intelligent person, but living it rough because of circumstances. Sometimes it is drug abuse, but it is not always drug abuse. Listen, circumstances lead people in certain directions. So we have to treat all of them as human beings, listen to them, respect their space and their autonomy. And when I say respect their space, if they're living in front of KFC in Port of Spain, respect their space. Don't pass and kick away the box or invade their sleeping space. There's where they live. That's their home. That is their home. And just as we do not want people to invade our homes, we should not invade their space. pieces. We have to treat them with respect. And if we want to move any of their belongings, we have to seek their permission. Can't just go and break it up. Can you imagine the heartbreak? Can you imagine what some people out there are experiencing as a result of homelessness? So they are experiencing homelessness and they are experiencing abuse and neglect and ridicule, and we're making them feel as though they are on a lower level on the humanity ladder. Comments? Sometimes, too, we make remarks that are so condescending. We call them worthless. We tell them all kinds of things. But we have to speak to them as equals. As equals. Avoid even the baby talk. Because sometimes we talk to them as though they're children, as though they're babies. We have to speak to them as equals. Don't call them any rough and rugged names, but don't treat them as babies either. And the psychologists say, do not even give them unsolicited advice. Ask them how they would like to be helped. We not to behave as though we know their situation more than they know it. You have to treat them like people. I spoke earlier about my experience when I visited my daughter. I talked about the circumstances that could lead to these people living on the streets. I want to talk about that a little more. Now, when we call them homeless people, there is some kind of permanence associated with that statement. When we say they're experiencing homelessness, it is suggesting that we believe that it is temporary. It's not a permanent situation. But when we label them homeless, it feels as though it's fixed, unchangeable. Yes? We shouldn't call them the homeless. The homeless. No. No. Because as human beings, we should really be advocating for them. We should be trying to help them as best we could. Trying, and of course, we have to talk to them about find out their needs and where they prefer to live. If you had a choice, where would you want to go? And so on. Listen, we have to listen and listen with compassion. Use people first language with them. So instead of saying the homeless man, the man who is experiencing homelessness. And we said before that we should avoid labels. So sometimes we call them the hobo or the tramp or the vagrant. And this will continue to chip away and strip away the respect that we should have for every human being, despite the circumstances. Lena calls it living it rough or living it tough. And she's saying we should respect people who are living it rough. We should respect them. We should dismantle the stereotypes because we feel only a certain class of people will experience homelessness. Well, that's not true. Because when I was with my daughter for those 2 months or so, I saw homelessness that made me so sad. Listen, some people were living in their vehicles. Some people were living in their vehicles. Some people were living in tents at the side of the road. And the people were offering them tents, and people would go with a chair, a small couch, or whatever they felt would make them comfortable. People were getting up from under those tents and going to their offices to work on mornings and return to their street side homes on evenings. And one of the things oh boy, that really crushed me was the fact that some of them were living under tarpaulin, but because LA is in the desert and they had no tall trees, even the tarpaulins were looking depressed because there were not strong things to tie it onto. So there was like twigs and very small. You didn't have tall trees there, so very short stumps, and you had this piece of rope tied to the top and tied to this thing. It was really very depressing for me. It was. But as I said, there were people who were getting up from under those homeless shelters or street side dwellings and going to work. So it was not a matter of laziness, it was a matter of circumstances. And some people experience homelessness as a result of job loss. So they might have had a job and they no longer, they're no longer working, and so they can't pay a rent. There's no place to go. I don't know, the persons who were with us from the early days would remember that there was a lady who spoke to us about the abuse she had experienced. She's a Trinidadian living in the US. The abuse she experienced, and she had to leave the husband, and she was living in her vehicle with her children. She eventually wrote a book, and she got a job, continued to study, and now has a doctorate. But she told us her story. People experience homelessness because of many, many reasons. So it could be job loss, or sometimes they experienced medical problems and had to use up all their money, can't pay the rent, can't work, and so they live on the streets. And sometimes the problem is just lack of affordable housing. In LA, housing is extremely expensive. So many people will experience homelessness. But we often jump to the conclusion that it is because of personal feelings that they're living on the street. Marjorie, I really want to hear you on this homeless issue. I really would like to hear, because of where you lived and because of the experiences that you have. I want your take on some of these people who are living it rough and who we turn to look down on because we think that we are in a better place. Marjorie?
Good night. I came in late. Yeah, but I'm listening. I think some of the factors involved, or one of the factors involved, is mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
I heard about the guy, somebody was talking about him, that he would be normal, living clean, looking clean, and next minute he's on the street begging. These are signs of mental illness sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And as you guys are speaking today, I was listening to a radio station about the changes in rental properties into Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm-hmm.
And we may be experiencing the same problem pretty soon. You are saying LA is unaffordable. New York is unaffordable. New Rochelle I lived is unaffordable. They are making new homes, new houses, but the poor man can't afford it. There's no middle class anymore. There's so many things that are causing problems in this world and would set many people back. If not for the grace of God, we all would be found wanting. So we cannot afford to turn our noses up at anybody.
That's right.
Because the grace of God goes high.
That's right.
Yeah, but a lot of people are mentally ill. The circumstances, the trauma they experienced that led them to homelessness, in part, was their mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
People would come to work and they would fight with everybody And they would say, I don't need this job, but they are mentally ill. You have to be astute enough. And a lot of people, mental illness is, although they are in it, they don't want to own it because it's a stigma they can't afford to bear. So, and nobody is taking care. I mean, in Trinidad and Tobago, they may be doing a better job with advocacy, you know, that has been addressed where police had shot persons because they were mentally ill and they weren't trained enough or were equipped enough to know the difference. So there have been some changes, but mental illness plays a big part.
It does.
In some of them, some of the homelessness.
It does, yes. And I spoke earlier about the ones who are experiencing mental health issues. They might not be, it might not be very easy to approach them and to engage them in conversation.
No.
I remember there was this guy in Scarborough, the guy they called Bodo. And one day I was passing him on the street, and I can't remember if I had said good morning to him or good afternoon, whatever it was. I might have. And he looked at me straight in the face and said, I don't want no woman.
So don't talk to me. But if you don't know what you're dealing with, you stand there and the West Indian thing is to cuss you out.
I had a good laugh. You know. He's now deceased. And
because they are hearing things and seeing something totally different than what you have said, you know?
Yes.
It's a sad, we're in trouble. The world is in trouble.
It is.
We are in trouble.
Yes. So we have those who are out there with the mental health issues, and of course we have to be cautious. But there are those who are out there because of
circumstances beyond their control.
Yeah. Relatives who just took away
put them out.
Put them out. Yes.
Their husband died and the family put them out. So many strange stories you hear every day.
You know, I had a student from Guyana a couple of years ago, and her father died. When the father died, the in-laws put the mother and the daughters, the children, out of the house. And it was such a stressful time for all of them. You know, and it was in the middle of COVID and they struggled. We really have to be kind, you know. We should not be wicked. We should not be wicked.
What we sow, we will reap.
Of course.
That's a law of nature. That's one of God's law. You sow corn, you'll reap corn. You can't reap anything else.
That's right. Yes, we have to treat people well. We have to treat them.
Dr. Ward, I just wanted to share. So there was this man, always used to be around Scotia Bank there when Scotia was in Scarborough. And I would pass in and say, good morning. He was a very pleasant man. Good morning. And then one morning, he said, what? And he said, beautiful lady, what's your name? And I told him my name. And he said, oh my, you have such a beautiful name. And he was sitting there. So I said, but you're so a very nice, godly man. Why are you sitting in front there and, you know, stretching your hands out for arms? He was telling me, he said, you have a minute where you can listen to me? And then he started to tell me his story that he was living in the States a couple of years and he sent money home to his family to build this house. And when he came back, there was no house. They took all the money they just did what they had to do. And that kind of sent him to the madhouse. he just tripped,
Hmm.
you know. And we, I sat there and I said, I'm so sorry that you went through such an awful ordeal, and I said, will you like me to pray with you? And he said, sure. He said, how long somebody can do that for me?
Hmm.
And, every time I go into Scarborough, I always used to take something for him. So as you were saying, it is very nice for us to be kind to them and listen to their story, because many a times we see people out there and we don't know their story. We don't know. We say, look him,
Judgments,
look
yes.
she.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's
Worthless.
and all these kind of things. But
Yes.
sometimes, just these things trigger people. And people just lose their way, and they just want somebody to just hold their hands and let them know that they are special, they are being recognized, they just want to say good morning. And this is something, I think in every one of us we have something, God has placed that kind of a love within our hearts, that we should never be kind to people. But I call them the displacement, right? I don't call them, they're just being displaced, but we need to be kind to people, because we don't know down the road what's going to happen to us or my generation. I may have, a grandson or a cousin or somebody within the family lineage, and they may end up in that kind of situation, and we like somebody to help them, by the way. And we should stretch out our hands and help them. If we can give them something to eat, if we can give them some clothes, if we can find ways to set them up, let them get a clean place to lie and sleep. If we can do, God has placed us on the face of the earth to be a beacon of light to people, to help people, because we are sleeping comfortably in the night, but we don't know the other man, what he's going through. So we must be very empathetic with people, and we should try our best to see if we can help them.
That's
And the
right.
Lord will do the rest.
That's right. Hear what Lena says. Anyone who knows me knows exactly what I stand for. I stand for people experiencing homelessness. I stand for their dignity, their safety, and their right to be treated with respect. And I will step in every single time when I see that being compromised. Yes, I moved in front of the camera and put my hand up to block him. Yes, I told him to stop. And I make no apology for that, because no one deserves to be filmed in their most vulnerable moment and have it turned into content. Well, content is what they place on social media. Yeah, she's saying no one deserves that, to be filmed at their most vulnerable moment and have it turned into content. She says, what I am is someone who shows up consistently for people doing it tough on our streets. Every photo we take in our work is with consent. Every interaction is grounded in respect, trust, and care, because that's what real outreach looks like. What is more concerning is that this kind of behavior is not new. We've had people in the community come to us asking how to stop being filmed by him. That's the man who was doing it. And how to stop being exposed during vulnerable moments. That should concern all of us. People experiencing homelessness are not content, meaning it's not to be placed on social media as content by these content creators. They are not entertainment. They are human beings. I stand by what I did, and I'll continue to stand between exploitation and the people we support. every single time. Every single time. You know, and I truly admire her for the way she is standing up for these people. Lena and her team, they're able to feed people who are experiencing homelessness every single night. And right now, she's working on, right now, she's working on providing a shelter for the winter, a shelter, temporary shelter, so that they will have somewhere warm in the winter. How does she do it? Of course, they're very creative, and we did not have that meeting that we planned to have last night, 8 o'clock my time. Because of the time difference, 14 hours time difference, it's a little difficult for us to meet, but I know we're going to meet again shortly so that I can talk with her. But I truly admire what she does, and I admire the fact that she is standing up for people who are experiencing homelessness. As she said, they should be treated with respect, dignity. They should be treated as human beings. Their situation is not content. And if we want to help, if we want to have a picture or a video so that we can help, we should first obtain their permission. They are not things, they are people, they're human beings. Their experiences at the time may not be the best, but it doesn't make them less of a person. Doesn't make them children of any lesser God. They belong, they're people, and what they're experiencing is not entertainment. It is not entertainment. So, as Lena said, and she really, really spoke strongly that evening, don't film them. Don't do it. Help them. Speak with them. Find out what they need. Empower them. Help them to make decisions. Find the time to talk with them. Find out what their names are and call them by name. Yes, let's use people first language. So instead of saying people, instead of saying homeless people, we say people experiencing homelessness.
Good evening, Dr. Bob, and all those online.
Yes, Bishop.
Hmm.
Good evening.
Well, this is a story that took place about 2 days ago in St. Vincent. A pastor's wife, she was in a flower garden doing some work. And this guy went there with, I think, with a weapon. I don't know what kind of weapon, but he cut her on her hands and cut her throat. And it was something else. They were saying after he did that, he was running. So, now you talk about mental illness. Sometimes, I don't know if that was a fact, but he was arrested by the police, and that the pastor, we are very close friends, very close, supportive. And it really shocked me and the nation here in St. Vincent. I really shed some tears last night. I couldn't sleep at all properly. Well, I called him and I chatted with him. He also couldn't sleep.
Wow.
So sometimes people say they are mentally ill, but I wonder why he was running after he committed the crime. But it's really sad.
It is.
You know, so sometimes folks might not be really mentally ill. They just want to do stuff and then try to run. But we'll have to get a report from the police and the doctor here. So we need to pray for. His name is Pastor Leon Williams, a very good friend of mine. So at this time, he has a daughter, I think, in Canada. She was supposed to graduate next month. They were supposed to go up there to meet with her, but it's a sad situation. It's true that we should not really pick to video people without their permission. And the least thing happened in our time, it's going on Facebook.
Yes.
All over the world. Even my daughter, she was able to tell me before I heard. So we have to be careful.
Of course. Yes, Bishop. We are sorry to hear about this loss, unfortunate. Yeah? But they are,
Pastors are not exempt. You know, men of God are not exempt from mental illness or from trials of life. And with this war that's going on, it's affecting so much of people's psyche. The unsurety, the stress, the not knowing why and how it's affecting. So I'm not even alone in St. Vincent. Just recently, some man killed about 8 of his children and his wife.
yes.
Man who was a star in the government, in Congress, killed his wife.
Yes, we saw that.
Especially with Black men. The stress is real and they have no one to go to. You know, we say get help. Black men don't like help. They don't like going and expose their stories to anybody because they don't trust it. They don't trust the person that well. But we have to take care of one another.
Yes, yes, we do.
We have to learn to take it down a notch instead of taking it up. And the devil don't care what church you go to or what you're doing. His job is to kill and destroy, and that's what he's doing. And we are in trouble. We are in trouble.
Yeah, and Dr. Ward, and you realize we are not exempted from Trinidad and Tobago either, because we see what is happening in our islands right now. That we lost a little girl on the beach. The 8-year-old, we lost another 8-year-old child, and we lost a police officer. You know, so
the prince of the air is everywhere.
Yeah, so we see,
in any country.
Yeah. So you see, the Lord is you know, Satan is on a rampage because he knows that he has but a short time.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to see how many people he can take with him. You know, and that is why we have to be always be constant in prayer. We have to pray for each other. We have to be very careful of our surroundings. You know, we have to be very, very careful. We have to be mindful of what is happening around us. You know, and you know, on that note, you know, we when our kids were small, growing up, and we had some of these same guys on the street. They don't have any home, but when they pass, they will get, if I bake, I will give them something to eat, something to drink, and I will treat them just as how I will treat you coming into my home. These guys, when our children was going anywhere, these guys was our children's protector. Nobody couldn't interfere with our children, because they used to look out for our children. And that is to tell you, because how they've been treated with love and dignity. You never look down on them. And so we have to be very careful how we treat people, what we say to them, you know, because we may find ourselves in certain situation, and maybe they are the ones who the Lord would have placed to get us out of those situations. So we have to be very mindful of how we treat people.
That's right. That's right. Let me talk a little bit about what we give to them. There is something called dignified giving. Giving them things that we know are good. So the rotten food we can't give to them. The old torn up clothes will depress them more. What we provide for them should be like blessing bags. Things that they can use, things that we know are of good quality, high quality, things they can use, toiletries and other things, clothes and whatever we think they need. And of course, we can ask them, what do you need? What can I bring to you? so we can help them, like giving them these blessing bags. We can advocate for them. Yes, we should always speak up for them. There's always somebody we can talk to about these people who are living it tough or doing it tough, as Lena says. And if we can't afford housing, or we know of a place where they can find a bed, we certainly should try to help them to get to it. They're living out there because many of them have nowhere to go. Now, there are some people who are living on the streets who have places to go in, and they refuse to go there. We're
And
talking
that's
about
part
the
of the
ones,
mental illness.
yes, yes. But we're talking about the ones here. Well, they need a different kind of help, Matri. But the ones who lost a job, lost a home, became homeless, are experiencing
Yeah.
homelessness. And homelessness is all that they're experiencing. There's so much we can do for them besides trying to pull out the cell phone and capture a video.
I don't know who want to trade off somebody's problem, but this is how we dismiss others. As the young people say, we erase, we demoralize them, and then it's so easy to forget about them.
Yes, yes.
I am dealing with a problem. There's a young lady in our church. Her husband died. They weren't married, but she had 2 children. Then she has one after. But she says she doesn't get help. Every time she goes to get help, they keep telling her somebody's going to come to the house. Somebody comes to the house, and up to now she hasn't gotten any help. 6 years now.
Wow.
3 children.
I hope something can be done.
You know, and I was introduced to this situation, minding my own business. So when I asked her, well, how do you survive? She's always sick. The devil, where she's living, her mother-in-law is always saying she'll do it to your hands. And, she's having issues. So she can't work because she's always vomiting and whatever. And nobody teaches us about spiritual warfare in our churches. You have to come to know your God on your own personal basis in order to fight. But what I find is that people, they have already dismissed her. Like, she's lazy or she doesn't want to work.
Yeah, we judge.
Yes, we judge. And when we judge, it's the fact that we don't want to be responsible to help one another. So we label you and then we erase you,
And that's
Easter,
wrong,
I said, I'm here minding my business and the Spirit is telling me to call her all day. Call the young lady, find out how she and the kids doing. I finally did. Do you and the kids have food for the Easter? She said, Sister Marjorie, no, but something, if you could get them some bread and I called the persons who asked me was to get in and talk to the young woman. That's how I got involved. And I said, do you guys know she doesn't have food? And so I thought she getting money from the government. We thought, and this, and how do you walk away? I'm here last week. The same voice called her. Same problem, no food. And food that I would spend $600-800 for now is over $1,000.
Yeah, everything is more expensive now.
And people are in trouble. I grew up in a family of 12 kids. I don't know what it is to be hungry. And I cannot see somebody say they're eating dry bread with ketchup. The kids eating bread with ketchup for dinner, breakfast, and that's
That's some
And
people's reality, Marjorie. It happens. It happens. That's some
but
people's reality.
we who could help, we are
Must
not.
help. We must
We
help.
are not.
Mm.
I'm not rich. I spend all my money to build a
It's
house and
real,
build a
it's
home.
real,
Mhm.
it's real.
God has been
The struggle is
faithful.
real, Margie.
So let's do what we can to help
Ah,
those
have
who are in
mercy.
need. Let us do what we can.
Oh,
Yeah.
have mercy, have mercy.
Mm. Yes, so yes, it's a real situation. Real problem. Homelessness. But they are not homeless people. It's just their experience at a particular point in time. And once we work, once we help, once we advocate, their situations could be reversed.
But in Tobago is who you know. You have to know somebody so they could expedite something. If you don't know anybody, you are left behind.
Hmm. I don't know.
I have to go to one of these days to see what the problem is. If it's because she doesn't understand or she's not fluent in writing and reading. You know. One
Hmm.
sister said that's a problem. Okay, if you know that's a problem, why haven't you guys helped?
Yeah, sometimes they need somebody to go with them and give them that kind of support. So it would be nice, Marjorie, if you can do that for her.
I don't.
Maybe
And so
sometimes
that
they
is
have to
why we need to
keep,
be our brother and
sometimes,
sister keeper.
yeah,
And
sometimes they need
that's
to,
what we don't do.
But I was just asked to talk to this young woman or listening on a conversation. And I
That's the
remember,
spirit, Marjorie, the spirit of God.
yeah,
Maybe
after
that's where God has placed you.
oh
And
God,
sometimes we don't realize that our calling, and sometimes
I've been
you
a
are the
nurse for
one that the
over
Lord
50
will want
years. This
to
is what I
use
yeah.
because you can get through to her. I may not get through to her the way you will get through to her. But
And
I saw. Yeah.
sometimes,
yeah,
Marjorie, they have to produce documents, and maybe she's not doing that. Some there might be
She
reasons
said
there.
she did all of that tonight. Self, I asked her.
Okay, well, go with her and see what is happening. Because I know they must make a visit. They have to
She
evaluate his
said they have visited
circumstances.
in the past. They are threatening to take away her kids when she can't send them to school.
She
Why are the
she
kids
needs
going to school? Because she doesn't have any money to buy whatever.
somebody who needs to help her follow up on that
But
situation.
sister, we are not doing that in our churches anymore. We are selfish.
So, Marjorie, somebody, because you know of the case, we have to deal with this one particular case, deal with them on a case by case basis. So this person needs this help. And no, some churches actually do it, actually give the kind of help that people need. Some
yeah,
churches.
There
we
are
have
people that
churches that does it.
they do,
Yeah.
but they are short of money too.
All right. So,
And that's why we need to rally around each other.
yeah.
Yeah, especially
But
women.
they are judging her and they're saying all kind of things. I had to tell somebody, you don't get to tell me about this person being whatever. I said, which woman in Tobago is going to walk there without somebody throwing a stone at them? I said, don't. She's
Yes,
down. She
yes.
doesn't need a
And maybe,
stone.
all right, so maybe we can deal with this issue, the things women do to each other. We can deal with that at another time. I know there are countless stories of people who need help and even today I was looking at something, looking at remarks people were making about a particular individual. So we can talk about that some other time. But Marjorie, see what you can do to help this
No,
young
I'm doing
lady. She
it
needs the
because
help.
when God arrests you to do something, you
You
don't
have to
want
do
to,
it.
but you have to for peace.
All right. So we thank you for looking out for her, for helping. And we wish that the whole society was like this. We need to reach out and touch somebody's hand and make this world a better place. If you can, reach out. He's not heavy, he's my brother. She's not heavy, she's my sister. We had programs with those titles already. Let us continue helping. They're not heavy. They are our brothers, they are our sisters, and there's something we can do to help. I thank you for the lively discussion we've had this evening. Let us reach out and help those who are doing it tough or living it rough or living it tough, as they say in Australia. I truly look forward to speaking with my friend so that we can learn more about how they do what they do. Yes, thank you all for participating. Next week, we are going to be on with another interesting topic. When you see the recording, share it and encourage people to listen so that our attitudes could really change. We need that transformation. Thank you once again and see you next week. I saw Akisha on earlier, but apparently she wasn't able to stay very long. Thank you. See you next week as we close off. Could you say a word of prayer for us, Bishop Hollis?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for your goodness, your mercy. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. We thank you for this program. Remember those on the street, Lord, nowhere to go. We ask that you'll raise up people or organization who will assist these people, O Lord, supply their need, and help us who know you as Savior. We'll reach out to them, Lord, and help them the best way we can. We give you thanks and praise for your goodness and your mercy, and we ask for a pleasant night's rest. All these favors I ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, everybody.